The twin suns of Eurelis Prime cast a lavender hue over the floating city of Calthera. Hovercrafts zipped silently between crystalline towers, and translucent walkways shimmered in the midday light. Among the alien races populating the metropolis, the Zalari were considered the most elusive, graceful, telepathic, and biologically distinct from any other known species. They rarely intermarried with off-worlders, let alone humans. Princess Vaila of House Chirai was one of the last pure-blooded Zalari. At 132 years old, barely adulthood for her kind, she was expected to uphold the traditions of her people, and chief among them was the interstellar betrothal ritual. Marrying into another species was not uncommon among ruling houses to maintain interplanetary diplomacy. But Vaila resisted fiercely, even when the Galactic Assembly encouraged stronger human-Zalari relations. "Why must I bond with a human?" Vaila had demanded of her mother, Queen Lissari, whose eyes shimmered like liquid moonlight. "They are volatile. Their emotions are too raw. They lack the harmony we cultivate." "It is not about comfort, daughter," Queen Lissari had answered. "It is about understanding, evolution, survival. The galaxy grows smaller, and we cannot remain isolated forever." But Vaila wasn't convinced. She'd studied Earth cultures. She saw the wars, the betrayals, the scars of greed. Humans aged rapidly, died young, and couldn't even share a telepathic connection the way her species could. How could she bond with someone she could never fully understand? Or worse, who could never understand her? Her mother had arranged a series of meetings, diplomatic courting exercises with human ambassadors, engineers, artists. They all smiled too broadly, tried too hard, failed to sense her emotions the way her people could. She dismissed them politely but firmly. She was ready to request exemption from the assembly altogether, until she met him. His name was Captain Elias Rain, a decorated commander of the Andromeda Vanguard, with a reputation for diplomacy rather than war. The first time Vaila saw him, he wasn't in uniform. He arrived late to the embassy gathering, wearing a simple black tunic with his command insignia clipped modestly to his collar. He stood out, not just because of his height or his unkempt hair, but because he didn't rush to greet her like the others. He watched, listened, waited. "Why don't you ask me the usual questions?" Vaila asked after the formalities, when they'd been left alone in the floating garden dome. "Because I already know the answers won't matter," Elias said. "You've probably answered them 100 times. Vaila tilted her head, curious despite herself. "Then why are you here?" "Because I'm under orders," he said, half smiling. "But also because I was curious. I wanted to see the Zalari princess who turned down 12 suitors and made an Earth diplomat cry." She laughed, unexpectedly. Startled them both. They talked for hours, about Earth's oceanic trenches and Zalari's sky cities, about music, war, poetry, and pain. Elias didn't try to impress her. He admitted his fears, told her about losing his older sister in the Mars uprising, and how it had shaped his desire to prevent conflict, not escalate it. He didn't understand her the way her own people could, but he listened in a way that made her feel seen, not studied, not analyzed. Over the next weeks, Vaila found herself requesting his presence more often. They explored Calthera's memory gardens, where emotion-sensitive flora responded to their feelings. Vaila was stunned to see the flowers pulse violet in his presence, violet for calm, connection, affection. "But you don't have telepathy," she whispered once. "How are you influencing the garden?" "I don't know," Elias replied, running his fingers along a blooming petal. "Maybe it's you. Maybe you're beginning to feel something." She said nothing then, But she felt the stirrings of something she'd never known, an emotion untranslatable in Zalari tongue, but all too clear in her heart. Then the assassination attempt happened. A radical Zalari faction, opposed to interspecies union, planted an explosive device in the diplomatic promenade. Elias spotted its seconds before detonation. He tackled Vaila to the ground, shielding her with his body as the shockwave tore through the plaza. When she awoke, bruised but alive, Elias was in critical care. Vaila refused to leave his side, breaking every royal protocol. She sat by his bed, her hands trembling with unfamiliar fear. She reached out with her mind, but found only silence. No thoughts to grasp, no emotions to cradle. For the first time she understood the horror of human limitation, and the beauty of their courage. Ending. Elias recovered slowly. He awoke to find Vaila asleep in a chair beside him, her hand still holding his. "You should have let me take the hit," she murmured when he opened his eyes. "Didn't feel like royalty at the time," he rasped. "Just felt like you." She smiled. And then she wept, something Zalari rarely did. After the incident, the political tides shifted. The queen, publicly shaken, moved to dissolve the betrothal mandate. She offered Vaila freedom to choose her path. But Vaila surprised everyone. In front of the Galactic Assembly, she stood, regal and radiant, and declared, "I choose not because I must, but because I have found what our ancestors hoped for, connection across species, culture, and soul. I will bond with the one who taught me fear and love are not enemies. I choose Captain Elias Rain." The ceremony was not traditional. Zalari marriage rituals required a soul bind, a merging of mental frequencies. Since Elias was human, this was considered impossible. But Vaila had spent weeks with their top neuroscientists and empathic engineers. Using a hybrid neural interface, she opened a one-way link during the ceremony. She projected her thoughts, her memories, her emotions to him. At first, he winced from the intensity. But then his eyes widened. "I can feel you," he whispered, awestruck. "Not just see you. I feel you." And Vaila, with tears in her eyes, whispered back, "Then you truly know me." The crowd watched in stunned silence. Two minds joined, one alien, one human. In the years that followed, Vaila and Elias became symbols of a new galactic era. They established the Interlink Project, developing empathy-bridging technologies to foster deeper understanding among disparate civilizations. Children across star systems learned about their story. Some called it legend, some called it prophecy. But for Vaila and Elias, it was simply life. She had once feared marrying a human. But in the end, it was the most Zalari thing she'd ever done.